Imagine a time long ago in the Wild West. It was a land of cowboys, dusty towns, and exciting adventures, but getting around wasn't easy. There weren't any cars or airplanes. People traveled in stagecoaches. Think of a stagecoach like a big, bumpy bus pulled by strong horses. These coaches were super important because they carried people, letters, and even gold from town to town. They were like the internet and delivery trucks all rolled into one. If you wanted to visit your grandma who lived far away, you'd hop on a stagecoach. If a shopkeeper needed to get supplies, they'd arrive on a stagecoach. And if someone discovered gold, you bet it would be traveling on a stagecoach. But these coaches weren't always safe. Bad guys, called bandits, sometimes tried to steal from them. They would hide along the road and jump out to rob the passengers and take the precious cargo. It was a dangerous time, and stagecoach drivers had to be very brave and clever to protect their coaches. Our story is about one of the most daring stagecoach robberies that ever happened and how it changed the Wild West forever. So buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride. Now every stagecoach needed a driver, and not just any driver. They needed someone brave, someone strong, and someone who knew the roads like the back of their hand. That's where Dusty came in. Dusty wasn't just a driver. He was a legend. He'd been driving stagecoaches since he was a young man, and he knew every bump, every turn, and every shortcut between towns. He had eyes as sharp as a hawk and a steady hand on the reins. People said he could outrun a coyote and fix a broken wheel with nothing but a piece of rope and a pocket knife. But Dusty wasn't just skilled, he was also kind. He always had a smile for his passengers and a story to tell. He made sure everyone felt safe and comfortable, even on the roughest rides. He treated everyone with respect, from the fanciest lady to the humblest farmer. He loved his job, even though it was dangerous. He knew that people depended on him to get them and their precious cargo safely to their destination. He took that responsibility seriously, and he was always ready for whatever the Wild West threw his way. Little did he know, his biggest challenge was just around the bend. While Dusty was known for his honesty and bravery, a different sort of character was brewing trouble in the shadows. His name was Jack, but everyone called him One-Eyed Jack because of the patch he wore over his left eye. Nobody knew exactly how he lost it, and nobody was brave enough to ask. One-Eyed Jack was the leader of a gang of bandits. They weren't just ordinary robbers, they were clever, cunning, and always one step ahead of the law. They knew the Wild West like the back of their hands, and they used that knowledge to their advantage. His gang consisted of a motley crew. There was Lefty Lou, known for his quick draw and even quicker temper. There was Silent Sue, a master of disguise who could blend into any crowd, and there was Fingers Frankie, who could pick any lock in under a minute. One-Eyed Jack was the brains of the operation. He was a master strategist, always planning their heists with meticulous detail. He knew exactly when and where to strike, and he always had an escape plan ready. He was ruthless and determined, and he wouldn't let anything stand in his way of getting what he wanted. And what he wanted was the gold that was being transported on Dusty's stagecoach. Deep in a hidden cave, lit only by flickering lanterns, One-Eyed Jack spread out a dusty map on a rough-hewn table. Lefty Lou, Silent Sue, and Fingers Frankie huddled around, their faces grim. "All right, listen up," Jack rasped, his voice like gravel. "Dusty's coach is carrying a shipment of gold from the mine. It's our ticket to Easy Street." He pointed to a narrow, winding canyon marked on the map. "This is where we'll hit 'em." Canyon Pass, it's the perfect ambush spot. Narrow, rocky, and Dusty won't be able to outrun us there. "How we gonna stop 'em, Jack?" Lefty Lou asked, nervously fiddling with his gun. "Dusty's fast." "We'll block the road with a fallen tree," Jack explained, a glint in his good eye. "Silent Sue, you and Frankie will take care of that. Make sure it looks natural, like it just fell." "What about the passengers?" Silent Sue whispered, her voice barely audible. "We don't want to hurt anyone unless we have to," Jack said, his tone hard. "But if they give us trouble, Lefty, you know what to do." Frankie, you get to crack that strong box. I hear it's filled with shiny gold coins. The bandits nodded, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. The plan was set. The stagecoach was their target, and one-eyed Jack was ready to make his move. The sun peeked over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink as Dusty's stagecoach rumbled out of town. The horses, eager to stretch their legs, pulled with a steady rhythm. Inside, the passengers settled in for the long ride. There was Mrs. Gable, a wealthy widow dressed in her finest clothes, clutching a small, velvet pouch. Across from her sat young Timmy, traveling to see his parents at their new farm. He bounced with excitement, clutching a worn-out toy train. A quiet gentleman with a stern face sat in the corner reading a book. He didn't seem to notice anyone. Underneath the seats, carefully locked in a strongbox, was the gold shipment, the reason for the whole perilous journey. It was destined for the bank in the next town, a payment for the miners' hard work. Dusty cracked his whip, urging the horses onward. The stagecoach swayed and bumped along the dusty trail, kicking up clouds of dirt. He whistled a cheerful tune, trying to ignore the nagging feeling in his gut. He always felt a little uneasy when carrying gold. He knew One-Eyed Jack and his gang were out there somewhere. He just hoped they wouldn't cross paths today. The journey had begun. As the stagecoach entered Canyon Pass, the walls of rock rose high on either side, casting long shadows. The air grew cooler, and the only sound was the echo of the horses' hooves. Suddenly Dusty saw it, a massive tree trunk lying across the road. "Whoa!" he shouted, pulling back on the reins. The horses whinnied and skidded to a halt, narrowly avoiding a collision. Before Dusty could react, masked figures emerged from behind the rocks, guns drawn. "Hold it right there," One-Eyed Jack yelled, his voice booming through the canyon. "This is a robbery." The passengers gasped in terror. "Mrs. Gable screamed and clutched her pouch tighter. Timmy burst into tears, burying his face in his toy train. The quiet gentleman looked up from his book, his eyes narrowed. Lefty Lou and Fingers Frankie jumped onto the stagecoach, pointing their guns at Dusty. "Don't try anything funny, old man," Lefty Lou snarled. One-Eyed Jack approached the coach, his one good eye fixed on Dusty. "Now, driver," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "We want the gold, and we don't want any trouble." The ambush had begun, the stagecoach was trapped, and Dusty knew he had to do something fast. Inside the stagecoach, panic swelled. Mrs. Gable let out a piercing shriek, burying her face in her hands. Timmy sobbed uncontrollably, clutching his toy train as if it were a lifeline. The quiet gentleman remained strangely calm, his eyes darting around, observing everything. "Everybody stay calm," Dusty shouted, trying to project an air of authority, though his heart pounded in his chest. He subtly loosened the pistol hidden beneath his seat. He knew he couldn't take on all the bandits alone, but he had to buy time. Lefty Lou, impatient and jumpy, fired a shot into the air. The sound echoed through the canyon, making everyone jump. "Shut your traps," he yelled, his voice cracking, "or next time the bullet ain't going in the air." Dusty saw his chance. As Lefty Lou's attention was diverted, Dusty yanked the reins hard to the left, hoping to send the stagecoach careening off the road and into the rocks. It was a risky move, but it might create enough chaos to give them an opening. But One-Eyed Jack anticipated his move. With lightning-fast reflexes, he grabbed the reins, yanking them back with all his strength. The horses, confused and frightened, reared up, their hooves pawing at the air. The stagecoach remained firmly stuck in place. Dusty's attempt to escape had failed. Tears streamed down Mrs. Gable's face as she clutched her velvet pouch, her knuckles white. She imagined all her precious belongings being stolen, leaving her penniless. She whispered silent prayers, hoping for a miracle. Timmy, completely overwhelmed by the chaos, started to tremble. He squeezed his eyes shut, wishing he was back home, safe in his bed. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew it was something terrible. He missed his parents terribly. The quiet gentleman, despite his outward calm, was calculating his odds. He subtly shifted his weight, positioning himself for a potential move. He scanned the bandits, looking for any weakness, any opportunity to turn the tables. His face was unreadable, but his mind was racing. Even Dusty, despite his years of experience, felt a knot of fear tighten in his stomach. He was responsible for these people, and he had failed to protect them. He glanced at each of their faces, seeing their fear reflected back at him. He knew he couldn't give up. He had to find a way to get them out of this. Their lives depended on it. The air inside the stagecoach was thick with fear and desperation. One-eyed Jack stepped closer to the stagecoach, his shadow falling over Dusty. "All right, folks," he announced, his voice cold and hard. "Let's make this quick and easy. I want all your valuables, gold, money, jewelry, everything. Put it in this bag, nice and slow." He held up a burlap sack. He turned his gaze to Dusty. "And you, driver, I know about the gold shipment. Open that strong box, or things are going to get messy." Lefty Lou brandished his gun, pointing it menacingly at Mrs. Gable. "Don't even think about hiding anything, lady," he sneered. "Fearfully, Mrs." Gable unclasped her velvet pouch and dropped it into the bag. Timmy, still sobbing, had nothing to offer but his worn-out toy train. The quiet gentleman, however, remained motionless, his eyes fixed on One-Eyed Jack. He didn't seem intimidated at all. "Well, what are you waiting for?" One-Eyed Jack demanded, glaring at Dusty. "Open that strong box." Dusty hesitated for a moment, then reached for the key hidden in his pocket. He knew he couldn't risk the passengers' lives. He unlocked the strong box, revealing the gleaming gold bars inside. One-Eyed Jack grinned. His plan was working perfectly, or so he thought. Just as One-Eyed Jack reached for the gold, the quiet gentleman moved with surprising speed. In a flash, he threw aside his book, revealing a shiny badge pinned to his vest. "Hold it right there, Jack," he shouted, his voice now strong and commanding. "I'm Detective Harding, and you're under arrest." One-Eyed Jack and his gang froze, stunned. They had been so focused on the gold, they hadn't suspected a thing. Mrs. Gable gasped, and even Timmy stopped crying, his eyes wide with surprise. Detective Harding pulled out a revolver from inside his coat. It was a beautiful, silver-plated weapon. "I've been tracking you for months, Jack," Harding continued, his eyes narrowed. "This robbery ends here and now." One-Eyed Jack's face contorted with rage. "You," he snarled, "I should have known. I should have killed you when I had the chance." The quiet gentleman wasn't quiet at all. He was a detective, and he was ready to bring One-Eyed Jack and his gang to justice. The stagecoach robbery had just taken a very unexpected turn. Now it was a battle of wits and skill, and only one side could win. The canyon erupted in gunfire. Detective Harding fired first, hitting Lefty Lou in the arm. Lou cried out in pain, dropping his gun. One-Eyed Jack dove behind the stagecoach, using it as cover. Fingers Frankie scrambled for his own weapon. Dusty, seeing his chance, grabbed his hidden pistol and aimed it at Fingers Frankie. "Get down," he yelled to the passengers, firing a shot that sent Frankie scrambling for cover behind a rock. The gunfight was short but intense. Bullets whizzed through the air, kicking up dust and ricocheting off the canyon walls. Mrs. Gable screamed and covered her ears. Timmy huddled on the floor, his toy train clutched tightly in his hand. Detective Harding, a skilled marksman, managed to wound another bandit, but One-Eyed Jack was proving to be a difficult target. He fired back with deadly accuracy, forcing Harding to take cover inside the stagecoach. "We gotta get out of here," One-Eyed Jack yelled to his remaining gang members. "It's every man for himself." He grabbed the bag filled with the passengers' valuables and made a run for it, disappearing into the rocky terrain. The other bandits, seeing their leader flee, followed suit. The gunfight was over, but the robbery wasn't. As the dust settled, Dusty and Detective Harding assessed the situation. Lefty Lou and Fingers Frankie were gone, vanished into the maze of rocks and canyons. One-Eyed Jack had escaped with the bag of valuables, but the gold shipment remained untouched in the strong box. "They didn't get the gold," Dusty said, relieved. That's the most important thing. They got away with the passengers' belongings, though, Harding replied grimly. We need to catch them and fast. Mrs. Gable began to sob again, realizing her precious jewelry was gone. Timmy, still shaken, offered Detective Harding his toy train. Maybe this will help you catch the bad guys, he said softly. Harding smiled sadly, accepting the train. Thank you, Timmy, I'll do my best. Dusty quickly checked on the horses, making sure they weren't injured. Then, he and Detective Harding worked together to move the fallen tree off the road. They had to get the stagecoach back to town and report the robbery. The bandits had escaped with some of the loot, but they hadn't gotten everything they wanted, and Detective Harding was determined to bring them to justice. The chase was on. When the stagecoach finally limped back into town, it was met by a crowd of worried faces. The news of the robbery had spread like wildfire. Sheriff Brody, a tall, stern man with a silver star pinned to his chest, pushed his way through the crowd. "Dusty, what happened out there?" he asked, his voice grave. Dusty recounted the whole story, from the ambush to the gunfight to One-Eyed Jack's escape. He described Detective Harding's bravery and the passengers' terror. The townspeople listened in stunned silence. They had heard stories of stagecoach robberies, but they never thought it would happen to them. Sheriff Brody shook his head. "One-Eyed Jack," he muttered. "He's been a thorn in our side for too long." He turned to his deputies. "Round up a posse, we're going after him." Mrs. Gable, still shaken, tearfully told her story to the townsfolk. Timmy, though traumatized, bravely showed everyone his toy train and explained how he offered it to the detective. The town was in an uproar. People were angry and scared, but they were also determined to help catch the bandits and bring them to justice. The stagecoach robbery had shaken their sense of security, but it had also brought them together. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The audacious stagecoach robbery at Canyon Pass sparked immediate changes. No longer would stagecoaches travel with just a driver and a prayer. From that day forward, every stagecoach carrying valuables would be accompanied by at least 2 armed guards, ready to defend against bandits. The stagecoach companies also invested in stronger strongboxes. These new boxes were made of thick steel and had complicated locks that even Fingers Frankie would have trouble picking. They were bolted to the floor of the stagecoach, making them nearly impossible to steal. Routes were also changed. Stagecoaches would now avoid isolated canyons and dangerous passes, sticking to well-traveled roads where they were less vulnerable to ambush. Stagecoach drivers were given new instructions. If confronted by bandits, their priority was to protect the passengers, not the cargo. Word spread quickly throughout the Wild West. Stagecoach robberies wouldn't be as easy as they once were. Bandits would have to think twice before targeting a stagecoach, knowing they would face armed resistance and stronger security measures. The Wild West was slowly becoming a safer place, one stagecoach at a time. The robbery, though terrifying, had forced change for the better. Sheriff Brody, with Detective Harding by his side, assembled a posse of townsfolk, each armed with rifles and a thirst for justice. They saddled their horses and set off into the rugged terrain, following the bandits' trail. "One-Eyed Jack won't get far," Sheriff Brody declared, his jaw set. "He knows these canyons, but we know them better." Detective Harding examined the ground, searching for clues. "They're heading towards Rattlesnake Ridge," he observed. "That's where Jack has his hideout, according to my sources." The posse rode hard, their horses kicking up dust as they followed the winding trail. The sun beat down on them, but they pressed on, determined to catch the bandits. They found signs of the bandits' passage. A discarded bandana, a broken branch, a hoofprint in the soft earth. The trail was clear and they were closing in. As they rode, Sheriff Brody spoke to the posse, reminding them of the importance of their mission. "We're not just doing this for ourselves," he said. "We're doing it for Mrs. Gable, for Timmy, for everyone who's been victimized by these outlaws. We need to show them that justice will always prevail." The posse nodded in agreement, their resolve strengthened. They were ready to face whatever dangers lay ahead, knowing they were fighting for what was right. The hunt had begun. Back in town, Dusty was hailed as a hero. Even though the bandits had gotten away with the passengers' valuables, everyone knew that Dusty had done everything he could to protect them and the gold shipment. The town newspaper ran a story about his bravery, calling him the hero of Canyon Pass. People stopped him on the street to shake his hand and thank him for his courage. Mrs. Gable, despite losing her jewelry, approached Dusty with tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Dusty," she said. "You saved our lives." "That's worth more than all the jewels in the world." Timmy ran up to Dusty and gave him a big hug. "You're the bravest man I know," he said. Dusty was humbled by the outpouring of support. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like he had failed to protect the passengers' belongings, but he also knew that he had done his best in a difficult situation. The town organized a celebration in his honor, complete with a barbecue and a brass band. Dusty, uncomfortable with all the attention, reluctantly agreed to attend. He knew that the celebration wasn't just for him. It was for everyone in town, a way to show that they wouldn't be intimidated by bandits. It was a way to show that they were strong and resilient, and they would always stand up for what was right. Even though the bandits escaped with some loot, the town had won in spirit. Later that evening, Detective Harding gathered Sheriff Brody and a few trusted townsfolk in the sheriff's office. He explained his role in the events that unfolded at Canyon Pass. "I've been tracking One-Eyed Jack and his gang for months," Harding explained, spreading out a map on the table. "They've been responsible for a string of robberies across the territory. I suspected they were planning something big, so I disguised myself as a passenger on the stagecoach, hoping to catch them in the act." He pointed to a spot on the map. "I believe their hideout is located somewhere in the Rattlesnake Ridge area. I overheard them talking about it a few weeks ago." Harding also shared the clues he had gathered during the robbery. "Lefty Lou has a distinctive scar on his left hand," he said, "and Fingers Frankie always wears a pair of gloves, even in hot weather, to protect his sensitive fingertips." He held up a small, silver button he had found on the floor of the stagecoach. "This button came off One-Eyed Jack's coat. It's a rare design which could help us identify him." Detective Harding's report provided valuable information for the posse as they prepared to continue their hunt. They now knew where to look and what to look for. They were one step closer to bringing One-Eyed Jack and his gang to justice. The detective had played his part, and now it was up to the posse to finish the job. Meanwhile, at the bandits' hideout in Rattlesnake Ridge, a different scene was unfolding. One-Eyed Jack and his gang were gathered around a campfire, dividing up the loot from the stagecoach robbery. Not bad at all," One-Eyed Jack chuckled, counting the money and jewelry. "We'll be living like kings for a while." Lefty Lou, his arm bandaged, grumbled. "It ain't enough, Jack. We should have gotten the gold." "We got what we could," Jack snapped. "Besides, that detective was onto us. We were lucky to get out alive." Fingers Frankie, his gloves still on, was examining a diamond necklace. "What do we do now, Jack?" he asked. "The posse will be after us. We can't stay here." "We'll lay low for a while," Jack said. "Then we'll move on to another territory. There are plenty of other stagecoaches to rob." Silent Sue, who had been unusually quiet, spoke up. "I don't like this, Jack. It's getting too dangerous. Maybe it's time we quit." "Quit," Jack roared. "You can't quit. We're a team. We stick together." An argument erupted, with the bandits divided on what to do next. Some wanted to keep robbing stagecoaches, while others wanted to disappear and start a new life. One-Eyed Jack struggled to maintain control, knowing that his gang was falling apart. The stolen loot couldn't hide the fact that their plan had gone wrong. The celebration was short-lived. Trouble was brewing, even within their own ranks. The posse, led by Sheriff Brody and Detective Harding, continued their relentless pursuit of One-Eyed Jack and his gang. They followed the trail through winding canyons and over rocky ridges, their determination unwavering. Detective Harding, using his knowledge of the bandits' habits, guided the posse towards a narrow pass known as Devil's Gulch. "This is the only way to reach Rattlesnake Ridge," he explained. "If we can get through here, we'll be right on their doorstep." As they approached the pass, Sheriff Brody raised his hand, signaling the posse to stop. "Hold up," he whispered. "I see something." Through his binoculars, he spotted a lone figure standing guard at the entrance to the pass. It was Silent Sue, her face hidden behind a bandana. "She's the lookout," Harding said. "They know we're coming." Sheriff Brody quickly devised a plan. He divided the posse into two groups, one to approach the pass from the front and the other to flank it from the side. They moved stealthily, using the rocks and shadows for cover. The sheriff was getting closer. He could almost taste the victory, but he knew that One-Eyed Jack wouldn't give up without a fight. The final showdown was near. The tension was palpable as they prepared to close in on the bandits' hideout. The air crackled with tension as the posse moved into position. Silent Sue spotted them and fired a warning shot, alerting the other bandits. The final showdown had begun. One-Eyed Jack and his remaining gang members emerged from their hideout, guns blazing. The canyon echoed with the sounds of gunfire as the sheriff's men returned fire. Detective Harding, a crack shot, took down Fingers Frankie with a single bullet. Sheriff Brody exchanged shots with One-Eyed Jack, their faces grim with determination. Lefty Lou, his arm still injured, tried to escape, but was quickly apprehended by two deputies. Silent Sue put up a fight, but was eventually overpowered and taken into custody. The gunfight raged on, with bullets flying in all directions. The posse, though outnumbered, fought bravely, knowing they had the element of surprise and the weight of justice on their side. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the gunfire subsided. One-Eyed Jack, wounded and defeated, lay on the ground, his gun clattering beside him. The remaining bandits surrendered. The final showdown was over. The law had prevailed. The reign of One-Eyed Jack and his gang had come to an end. The Wild West breathed a little easier that day. One-Eyed Jack and his gang were brought back to town to face justice. They were tried in a court of law and found guilty of robbery and other crimes. One-Eyed Jack was sentenced to many years in prison, along with Lefty Lou, Silent Sue, and what was left of his gang. The passengers' valuables were recovered and returned to them, bringing a sense of closure to the victims of the robbery. Mrs. Gable was overjoyed to have her jewelry back, and Timmy was happy knowing that his toy train had helped to catch the bad guys. Dusty continued to drive the stagecoach, now with armed guards and a stronger strongbox. He felt proud knowing that he had played a part in making the Wild West a safer place. The story of the audacious stagecoach robbery at Canyon Pass became a legend, a reminder that even in the wildest of times, justice would always prevail. It also served as a warning to other bandits, showing them that crime didn't pay. The robbery prompted lasting changes in how stagecoaches were protected, ensuring that future travelers could journey across the Wild West with greater safety and peace of mind. And so, the tale of One-Eyed Jack and the Canyon Pass robbery became a chapter in the history of the Wild West, a story of bravery, resilience, and the triumph of good over evil. The end.